Wednesday, January 21st. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights, and they were 11.
Let's do this.
In the spirit of watching anime that's new so we can talk about it, or at least know about it, we checked out three of the shows from the current season of anime.
Yeah, I don't even remember. Well, there was like two perverted ones, and there was one that we had high hopes for based on the description that wasn't so great. It was not in the first episode.
What amazed me was that the one that I thought would be more perverted was slightly less perverted, but still creepy. And the one that I didn't expect to be as perverted, at least right away, like I expected, if I watched the first 2 minutes of that show, I think it was like the one about the two sisters who were hot for their brother, but stepbrother,
right?
Whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to, within the first minute, get an erection surrounded by Utena flowers.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of came out of nowhere and really killed that show for me.
I mean, for a while we had like the sort of comedically perverted shows, sort of like, Love Hinas or Golden Boys and things, And then they sort of went to the moe shows, right, which were perverted, but not in any outward fashion. It was...
See, I would say that Love Hina was a big bridge between the two because Love Hina was a lot more moe and a lot less funny. Well, no, I can't say less funny because that doesn't really do it justice.
Not funny at all.
Terrible.
Yeah. I mean, it had cute turtles. That was about it.
I mean, at least Golden Boy was actually pretty funny.
Yeah,
we got to do a show on that. I
had to watch it again.
Yeah, I haven't seen that show since
a million years ago, yeah.
And I never even saw all of it.
Right. But now it seems like, I guess some of the shows that are coming out now are just outright perverted. It's like, no, let's not, do moe that's perverted but only in a hidden way. Let's not do perverted but comedy on top to make fun of it. Let's just come outright with the perversion, but then just, keep it a little, covered up so it's not hentai. They're basically just making hentai, but covering it up so it's not. And, no interest in that.
It's basically softcore porn. It's the same thing you'd see on, Cinemax.
Skinemax?
Yes, if you want to be clever and call it that.
Yep.
And then the one show we actually had hopes for, which was I
had hopes for a couple shows.
Girl on Robot Bicycle, maybe a little bit like Bubblegum Crisis or something, but no, that show turned into Initial D in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's sort of like Moonlight Mile, where they sort of tease you with this political stuff that could be really cool, but in the first episode at least, that never connects to the actual characters they're showing you. It's just sort of like they're showing you it's like, imagine if you were watching Initial D and every 5 minutes they cut to C-SPAN for 10 seconds and then cut back. And you're, wow, I wish this Initial D part with the cars has something to do with that politics I see. That would be really cool.
Yeah, but instead,
and then you get to the end of the episode, they never connect. It's really, they're just cutting away to show you C-SPAN.
Yeah, except it was C-SPAN and Sherpa sex, and between the two were little Gekiga-esque moments, like when he uses that crane to save that guy.
Yeah.
But there was nothing else there, but... I don't want to call it Flag Syndrome because Flag was another anime that did this. It looked awesome. It looked so good. The premise was great. The imagery was amazing. And then by the end of the episode, it literally turned into the robots are gonna go and steal that flag back. Woo.
Yeah.
But this show, I feel like there's a big warning sign that you can see, and I'm starting to recognize it more, but... If you're watching a show that is ostensibly about something else, but they start giving you the details of the made-up machines in the show, and I'm not talking details like, that's the red one, that's the blue one, but this one has the made-up number, made-up parameter, they give you the exact length in meters.
Well, I think the key...
They show you the interface, and it actually matters.
Well, I think the key, right, and how to do it right and how to do it wrong, right? And how to do it right is something like Gundam Seed. And what Gundam Seed does is they tell you things in Gundam Seed about...
Fire the Lone Greens.
Yeah, and they have phase shift armor and all these sorts of things, right? And, all different systems. But they don't ever have a scene where they stop and have a character just explain to you all the technology as if they were explaining you the rules to a board game. It's just things happen, and when different things get used, they say the name of those things, and then you see with your eyeballs sort of how they work.
Which,
so
it's good.
Even though they're doing the same exact thing, they're spreading it out, and they're sort of revealing it naturally. Whenever you see a show where there's a scene where you have a character like completely explaining all the details of some piece of machinery or some system or some like how the magic works in this fantasy world, right? And they spend like a good minute just telling you all the rules, like, oh, in this fantasy world, you can only cast.
Wait, though, because Full Metal Alchemist did that, and that was a pretty good show.
No, Full Metal Alchemist didn't spend like a whole minute. It was just like Toka the end.
No, they spend more time. I just think because it's not because
and Full Metal Alchemist, I would note, is not a rewatchable show.
No, but it was still a pretty good show.
It's okay.
But I think it's more that in a show like Gundam Seed, right? When they bring these things up, the show isn't focusing on the I don't know, details of the fake technology of the fake world. Kind of like those bad fantasy books that go into the details of the Witchalocks and all that stuff. But if you use it as consistent background to make the world consistent and make sense and be interesting in color and flavor, or if those things are relevant to the plot, then it can work. The problem is when it turns into Initial D syndrome, where the show revolves solely around the technicalities of the fake technology. At least Initial D almost was a little bit like Real Cars for the first season.
Kinda.
And I point out that I love Initial D. I did not...
Mostly for the Eurobeat music.
I did not bother with anything past the first season for a reason.
Yeah, without Eurobeat music, Initial D really wouldn't have anything.
But Rideback, it's like they designed this very specific mech that's really cool to people who really like mechs and motorcycles, and then they made a girl who's really good at it, who's basically going to be the Takumi, and I don't see how this is going to turn into a good show, because the plot of the first episode is it gets out of control, she's on it, they do made-up Baphomet crap to make it work and save her in the end by plugging in. They show you exactly what they're doing, like, I plug into this thing, I type this command, and then this happens. It's fanboy fodder, just like Gunslinger Girls, where they keep showing you the guns and talking about the guns. It's like the gun fanboy is going to be into that show, because you keep learning about the guns and talking about the guns.
Yeah, a good show is a show that concentrates on the characters and the plot and has those sorts of other things there and maybe fleshed out a little bit, but just for flavor. When the focus of the show is on those, things that don't really matter for the characters of the plot, then that is, or when those are the characters.
It's really too bad, though, because the show otherwise was beautiful. I mean, even...
Yeah, it looked really good.
While the plot of the first episode was real dumb, the character designs were pretty good, and the animation was great, and the scenes where she was riding that robot were amazing, but they were amazing fluff, so I don't think I'm going to watch any more Rideback unless...
I'm going to watch, you know what I'm watching? I'm going to start watching, I think starting tomorrow,
Nah.
Old Captain Harlock from the 70s. I got like 42 episodes worth, the whole show.
I'm definitely going to finish up Nodame Cantabile Paris, and then I'm going to move on to
Petty
finishing Birdie the Mighty, because I really, really like that new Birdie the Mighty.
All right. So you might know, right, that your comic books are ordered 2 months in advance. That's sort of how this thing works, right? So, what happens is usually, you get these order forms and previews, and they start to release them about, the late middle of the month. So right now, they're starting to release, some February previews, right, for, comic books that you will be able to buy on the shelf in April, right? So it's February for April. And I saw something in there that was of much personal interest, right? You see, when I was a kid, I wasn't as smart as I am now. And I think that's true for almost everybody. And, I didn't have a lot of money either, so I, couldn't afford to buy every comic book in the comic book store, which I probably would have done. And I'm very glad that I didn't, because I would have been much like Rim in his younger days. If he was, had money, he would have had a room full of swords.
Well, I always say, I got to make this graph so people can link to it. It's the graph of how much money you have, how much desire for swords you have,
and your age.
And whenever the three factors come into line, you're fucked, and you're going to own a whole bunch of swords.
Right, the same thing happened to me with, bad comic books. You know, because I still have a desire for comic books, but not bad ones like I did in the olden days. But no, when I was a kid, the comic books, I could only afford a couple comic books. By the way, they were $1.50 for those little flimsy things in those days. All right. So
you want to know something sad? The first X-Men comic book I actually owned came in the X-Men board game that I bought just because I wanted to paint the fairly high quality miniatures it came with.
Awesome.
I hated the X-Men. I just bought the game because...
No. So when I was a kid, I bought X-Men, but the other comic I bought was Spider-Man 2099. And Spider-Man 2099 is a story about, some future world that's all sci-fi and high-tech. And there's a guy who basically, he doesn't have a lot to do with Peter Parker, but, his powers are very similar, and he, calls himself Spider-Man 2099 and the whole thing, right? So it's actually... not bad, considering. Actually, it's pretty damn good. And the thing is, I have every issue of this comic because I collected it when I was a kid, and it has, some sort of personal value. But Marvel has never reprinted this comic or collected it in a trade paperback or anything. And this month, February for delivery in April, there's finally going to be a trade paperback of Spider-Man 2099.
Uh-huh.
But it's only going to be, get this, the first 10 issues. And I think there's 30 some odd issues, something like that.
All right, so 4 or 5 trades.
Yeah. And it's going to be $30, at least cover price.
See, now, it sounds like they realize that the people who were fans of it will buy it if they re-release it.
The thing is, I would have considered buying it. Actually, I planned to buy it before it ever existed.
You're going to say but, and before I let you say but, I'm going to butt in and point out that you are not their target demographic.
Yeah, that's true. But
they don't care about you.
Well, but think about it, right? It's I was thinking, oh man, I hope one day they put it out in trades. I get rid of all these stupid comic books and just have trades of it, and it'll be awesome, right? $30 for 10 issues, dude, that's $3 an issue. That's way too much money. Way too much money, considering I already have the issues. So I think what I'm going to do is, you ever go to the library and you see there are some books in the library that don't look like books from Borders? They sort of have these really generic, solid color bindings, and there's wait,
are you going to get your Spider-Man comics bound?
Yeah, it's only $15.
It's not that expensive. I was going to point out. I was surprised you hadn't been doing that with all your old comics before.
Well, now some of them aren't really worth binding, you know what I'm saying?
Well, the best part is now that, living in New York, there are plenty of places in the city that'll just do it for you.
But no, there's a place, that library binding, that specializes in doing it to comic books.
Nah.
So you pay $15, you put the comics in the mail in the order you want them bound, and then they send them back to you. And they're experts at it. And actually, most of what they do is, doing those generic bindings for libraries that you see, where it's a solid color, hardcover binding with some really boring print on the spine.
Clever girl.
So that's what I'm going to do. That way I don't have to, if I'm going to, because think about it, even if I get the best discount I can get is a 50% discount, it's $15, right, to buy the trade. Or it's $15 to bind up the issues I've got. And you know what? If I bind up the issues I've got, while I hate advertisements, these early 90s advertisements are high quality now. They have become art. They're no longer ads.
There's something really...
Brock's Rocks.
There's something
old
awesome
TSR games.
about seeing old advertisements. One thing I used to love about watching old VHS tapes.
Oh man,
because I have these day killers. I've talked about them before. At RIT, there were the day killers. They were super slow, 8-hour VHS tapes with just back-to-back episodes of The Simpsons without ads. But every now and then, an ad would be in there just because I wasn't paying attention, or someone dropped the ball when we were recording this stuff as a kid. And watching an ad that is more than a decade old is always a feast for the eyes and ears.
Yeah, it's weird how an advertisement, right, is the worst thing ever if it's brand new. But if it's old, it's no longer an advertisement. It's just art now, and it's awesome. It's I think what we should do is we should just ban all advertising that isn't at least 5 years old. You see, if you want to put an ad on TV, you've got to make it. You've got to wait 5 years, and then you can put it on TV.
That, Scott, is a terrible idea.
That's an awesome idea. What are you talking about?
So, speaking of terrible ideas, there was an anime that was coming out. We've talked about it a couple of times. Hetalia Axis Powers, which is based on a webcomic. And basically, it's personifications of European nations bickering with each other and fighting with each other and doing all the things that Europe did for much of its history.
Yeah.
And it was being made into an anime, and it was all set to go. Kid Station in Japan picked it up. And then they very recently announced that they're no longer picking it up, and it is now officially canceled. Now, the thing is,
They still made the show.
the internet exploded immediately.
Yep.
So it so happens that the rumor going around was that people in Korea signed this gigantic petition saying that it was offensive to Korea, and it glossed over
How
war
did
atrocities.
that many Korean people even know or care about this
Well,
thing?
I'll get to that. And that because of that, Kid Station decided not to show it. Now, Kid Station actually released a statement saying that, quote, it was unaware of the criticism in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
That basically they said that the decision had nothing to do with that. They really weren't aware of it. It was canceled for other reasons. Now, we can't know for sure, obviously, because these sorts of things are never... I mean, if you think the anime industry in America is not transparent, we have no idea what happened over there at Kid Station. Like, for all we know, I don't know. I was trying to think up something funny. I'm kind of tired.
A
I got
wizard
nothing.
came and told him not to.
It's not that... Wizard.
A voodoo lady cast a curse.
Voodoo lady. It was clearly a witchalok.
Yeah, Junior
I
Witchalocks.
like witchalocks.
All right.
But have no fear. The show is still going to be available because they made it. And there are going to be ways to see it. In fact, quote, mobile animate service for mobile phones. I started at the wrong part of that sentence. Regardless, animate.tv will have it. It is going to be on the internet where you're going to be able to see.
So it's not going to be on TV, but it'll be on the internet and the telephones.
Yeah, so we will be able to see it.
That's
and beyond that, I got nothing else.
Yeah.
But in terms of the petition in Korea, as far as I can gather, there were several petitions. They were internet petitions,
Yeah.
which basically mean nothing.
Yeah. No, but that's like, that's basically Emily's like favorite thing in the whole world. She was into it before it was an anime or anything. And, one thing that she told me that I thought was the most interesting part is that basically this manga, it was actually a webcomic, right? That was made by a Japanese, person of unknown gender, right? Because they're sort of secret, it's a pen
Himamura
name.
Hidekazu.
Yeah, it's a pen name, right? But the person is living in Brooklyn. So someone living in Brooklyn made a webcomic, right?
In Japanese.
In Japanese language, but it was a, webcomic made by a person living in Brooklyn. And then that became an anime. So all these indie comic creators and all these web comic creators out there can shut up and stop complaining, right? That, Diamond is so evil. Oh, but if I don't go with Diamond into the comic book store, I can't make money.
No, instead,
Look,
you can make an anime
some
and
guy
get it canceled.
some person in Brooklyn made a webcomic and boom, anime. And I'm sure that even though it's not on TV, I'm sure they're still going to be getting some green, all right?
Now, for anyone who wants to read the comic, it so happens that Emily has taken it upon herself to start translating large portions of it. And whenever more of it's there's an index page, we'll link to it. But Emily is doing a lot of translation work for the original webcomic, which, from what I have seen, especially if you were into history at all, hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, well, you don't get made into a TV show by being, lame.
But, I mean, think about it. This is like... Hetalia is northern Italy, and he's this like Bishonen guy. And then there's Russia and Austria and Hungary and all these people.
So I guess the Italian guy is the main character, which is why he's in the title?
Yes.
Okay.
The name is also kind of a pun, but we'll review this once we see it.
Yeah.
So, things of the day. Now, I think we've talked about this a couple times before, but if you're not fully aware, the Ghostbusters is one of the funniest movies ever made. Like, Ghostbusters, far and away, like, I could watch that movie for the rest of my life and never get sick of it. That movie is just... Well,
I don't know. I think I could watch, real Star Wars movies longer.
I don't know. I think Star Wars and Ghostbusters are very similar in terms of appeal. In terms of durability.
I think Star Wars 4, 5, 6 is a little bit more durable.
I don't know. I really don't know.
I know.
Ghostbusters is fantastic. But anyway, I'm sure you all know the deal how there was a cartoon called The Real Ghostbusters. And the reason
That was
for,
a great cartoon. I loved it.
the
You
reason
ever see
for,
the Cthulhu episode?
Yes, oh my
We
god.
should link to that or something.
I'm pretty sure we have.
Have we? All right.
Anyway, but I'm sure you all know that it was called The Real Ghostbusters because there was this other Ghostbusters cartoon that came out first called Ghostbusters.
The thing is, back in those days, I didn't even realize there was another Ghostbusters cartoon
see,
until after the real one.
I did because I remember. Oh my! I saw like in the TV guide thing on our cable because we had cable. Like, back then.
See, I didn't have a TV guide.
I saw Ghostbusters and I was like, Ghostbusters cartoon? Ah! I turned it on and I saw a gorilla and I didn't know what to think. I actually watched that show for a while. And then finally the real one came out. But a lot of people were used to say that was like a ripoff of Ghostbusters, or like there was some shenanigans where they got the name and made the cartoon, and that's why they had to call it The Real Ghostbusters. So I want to set the record straight for anyone who's interested in exactly what went down here, because the truth is far sadder than you would believe. So it all started in 1975.
Yep.
When The Ghostbusters, a live-action television show, the opener of which I have linked to as my thing of the day.
It's real bad.
This is bad. Like, this is back in the era where there was a lot of locally produced television. Like, there were TV shows that were only on in the Midwest.
The thing is, some locally produced television is like great and is like lost for all eternity, and it's kind of sad. Like Romper Rooms are the fucking best. But, you know, we've lost that. So it's good and bad because a lot of it was just terrible.
So then, of course, the Ghostbusters movie, the movie that we care about, was made in 1984.
Yeah.
Yes, 1984.
Yep.
So in 1984, Ghostbusters the movie was made. And then in 1986, the fake Ghostbusters cartoon was made based on the original movie because they had the rights to it.
Based on the original TV show.
Yeah, the original TV show. So then after that, they said, oh crap, and they made The Real Ghostbusters.
Now, did they make the 1986 cartoon remake of the 1970s TV show knowing about the popularity of the 1984 movie and attempting to capitalize on it?
So, when they were making Ghostbusters, that was the working title. And after they started filming and putting stuff together, they found out that there was some other thing called Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
So they made up a bunch of alternate titles, and they were ready. Basically, they were going to try to get the rights, and if they couldn't, then they were just going to change the name. But as the production went on, people got so attached to the name Ghostbusters that they approached Filmation and said, look, we need Ghostbusters' name, and they got the rights to call a movie Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
They did not get any other rights. So once the movie was a success, Filmation put out Ghostbusters based on that crappy TV show.
So they were attempting to capitalize on the great movie.
Yes.
But the thing is, they couldn't, even though they could, right, capitalize by calling their cartoon Ghostbusters. They couldn't capitalize by putting, you know, Ray, Egon, etc., Slimer in there because they didn't own that shit.
No, but instead they had Prime Evil and the Skelevision.
Yeah, great.
Ansibone.
No.
Ansibone was a skull that was also a telephone. I watched this show for like a little while.
I feel bad for you.
They used this like skeleton elevator. And they had this car. And there was a gorilla.
Who animated this thing?
I don't even know.
I'd like to interview them.
Would you really?
That'd be interesting as all hell.
Oh, sorry. The animated television series was created by Filmation and distributed by someone else.
Filmation, not equal Funimation.
Yes. There's a big distinction.
Two different things.
So, enjoy. You probably won't ever want to watch these again.
Just so also people know, the guy who wrote the real Ghostbusters cartoon, you know, the one that was called The Real Ghostbusters based on the good 1984 movie, he writes many popular comic books.
So, what do you got for me?
So, there's, Japanese people, they like toys.
Perhaps.
Yeah, and this is all over the internet. You've probably seen this already, but I thought it was pretty neat. Some company made Obama action figure.
Oh, I saw these. Good idea.
Yeah.
Clever girl.
So it's like a really good action figure. It is very articulatable, and it's got all these different switchable heads, that look like Obama with different facial expressions and such. And someone, I guess in Japan, took this action figure and photographed it in many interesting scenes, among which are Obama pulling out very dangerous weapons from under his coat,
All right.
Obama with samurai swords, Obama with a lightsaber fighting Darth Vader.
Now, is there Obama versus Kenshiro? Because I don't know who would win.
We'd have to make it, but
I really don't know who would win.
one really good picture is Obama lying down with his hands, holding his head up, like people do, with his legs under a kotatsu, with a bowl of oranges on the kotatsu. and near his head is an old Famicom. I don't think Obama is a man of the world, but I do not know if he has ever sat under a kotatsu. In fact, I don't know if he would know what a kotatsu was if you said, hey, do you have a kotatsu? But wherever I move next, be it apartment or house, kotatsu is like number one on the list.
While I like kotatsu, I think they're an awesome thing, they really don't serve any purpose in a modern home.
Why not?
Because the temperature is always perfect in the home.
But you see, what you do is you turn the heat off.
No, then your pipes freeze.
You keep the heat low, and then, hot enough to where the pipes won't freeze, but maybe 50 something or low 60s.
So basically, I make it so that the comfortable part of my house is very tiny and very comfortable, and the rest of it is an inhospitable wasteland.
Yes.
Plus, you realize kotatsu are designed for if you're wearing traditional Japanese clothes. Because think about it, if you're wearing stuff like that,
don't those come with the kotatsu?
I don't know.
They must.
I don't think so.
I thought they did.
I'm pretty sure you have to have your own clothes.
Well, you're wearing normal pants, and then as soon as you put your legs under the kotatsu, it goes poof, and they change into, Japanese pants.
Yes, that is exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway.
What the hell are you paying so much money for?
I want to get right into this, actually, because we're talking about, it's one of those rare nights when we're talking about an anime for which I have almost nothing bad to say. Like this, before we even go any further, if you have never seen an anime called They Were 11, just go out and buy it and watch it. Like, don't even bother listening to the rest of this. It is so worth seeing that I don't need to say it again. I shouldn't need to stress it. It is fantastic. You will enjoy it.
Basically, I always knew about this, right? I always knew there was a thing called They Were 11, and that the story was that there's a spaceship of some kind or a space station, or people were in space, right? And there were only supposed to be 10 people in space, but when they got there were 11 people.
That's all most people knew.
That's all I knew about it.
They had it in the RT Anime Library. There's some fan sub.
Yeah, but no one knows who the 11th person is. So someone isn't supposed to be there.
Yes, and the show, well, the movie, because it's an animated movie, a full feature movie, pretty high budget too, is pretty unknown. I've very rarely run into people who have heard of it, let alone seen it. I hadn't seen it until recently.
Well, it's one of those things you're gonna get from like a cheapo CPM DVD, right? It's not made anymore in the US. It was made in the US. It was a CPM.
Didn't we buy this for like $5?
Yeah, we bought
Anime
this.
Next.
We did. We bought it for real cheap in some CPM discount bin.
I'm pretty sure it was one of those, every DVD $5. That's when we bought all of Master Keaton, and we probably bought this too.
But usually you go there, right, and you get these like cheapo DVDs, and they're usually all bad, right? Like Judge. Or
Judge isn't bad. Judge is awesome.
Or Ayani's High Kick.
Ayani's High Kick isn't bad. It's awesome.
Right? But They Were 11 is like in the same bin.
You know what's bad? Doomed Megalopolis.
So you see They Were 11 in the same bin as these other things, so you kind of ignore it. But really, it's sort of the diamond in the rough.
Now, the thing is, I should have realized much earlier, because I would see the DVD laying around, but if you really look at it, the character designs look very high budget. Like the DVD looks like one of those.
But that can be deceptive because Odin was also high budget.
Yes, thus the conundrum. but
high budget. That Ride Back show was high budget.
So
At least high production value, even if not high budget. So They Were 11, the original manga, was by Hagiomoto, who is like super famous shoujo person. You know, remember when we talk about Tutara? We talk about like Keiko Takamiya, like, you know, legendary, groundbreaking, revolutionary shoujo manga creator. Hagiomoto is like one of the other ones that was in the same group. The
49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers, a.k.a. the Showa 24 group, because, you know, 1949 was the 24th year of the Showa era, right? And basically, these were the ladies who sort of, well, not sort of, did, you know, start shoujo, basically, and what we know now as shoujo.
And I gotta say, if you look at the cover of the They Were 11 manga, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, nowadays, maybe not because that's what shoujo is, but because that's what's published in the U.S. and sold as shoujo in the U.S., you know, people tend to think, you know, of shoujo stuff as, you know, pink and flowery and relationship-y kind of stuff. But all this early shoujo I'm seeing is all sci-fi, pretty much. And all these early shoujo authors, you know, for the Showa 24 group are all sci-fi and fantasy and awesoming it up. And, you know, it doesn't get a lot of respect over here in the U.S. except among the smart fans who know the score.
I mean, the genres that are most often applied to They Were 11 are mystery, romance, and space opera.
I think it's really a suspense kind of thing.
That's probably in there, too.
Yeah.
But it is also definitely a mystery, romantic space opera.
Oh, yeah.
But,
see, and the thing is like it was sitting there, and I kind of wanted to watch it for a long time, ever since we got the DVD. But every time I suggested, hey, let's just watch it, we just never watched it.
Part of it was that whenever we have a movie like this, we kind of always want to wait until we have enough people to where if it's bad, we can all make fun of it. And if it's good, I don't have to watch it 100 times as I keep showing it to more people.
I think the other thing is that we sort of expected it to be a quiet, slow space movie, which it is a little bit, you know. And sort of some people don't like that as much as others. Like, I really like, you know, quiet, slow in space, but other people sort of just get annoyed and grumble a lot. So, you know, basically one day I was just home alone, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just fucking watching this thing. And I watched it, and I thought it was going to be good, or at least I thought I would like it. But when I got done watching it, well, not even by, you know, a little ways through, I was like, wow, this isn't just something that I'm liking. This is something everyone's going to think is fucking awesome. Holy shit.
Now, the plot really, like, if you watch this, and we can't talk a lot about it because this is one of those movies where there's a big reveal, and then once the big reveal happens, you can watch the movie again.
You can tell a lot, though, without the reveal.
Yes, but it's one of those movies where it is a very different experience knowing what the deal was.
Definitely.
But basically, this is set in the far future, and mankind is spread out throughout the cosmos. And they have created a sort of university, a school, the elitist of the elitist of the elite, the best and brightest that all of humanity and the other races they have encountered in their millennia. The very best of the best of the best, the top of the top of the top. The people who pass, these are already at this entrance exam, the best people the universe has to offer.
Yeah, it's like the Oxford of the universe, right? So basically, there's this entrance exam to get into the best university in the universe, or the galaxy, or whatever the fuck it is, right? And they go on, they get opens up, and the first thing they do is tell you about this exam, right? And how like 0.1% of the people who apply make it past the preliminaries, and then like another small percent make it to the next stage, right? And then, you know, after that, there's only like 700 people left. And we think this isn't just like Earth, which has 6 billion. I mean, imagine if there was a test on Earth, right? Where 6 billion people were on Earth and 700 passed the test. This is an entire galaxy or an entire universe of, you know, different planets of people living on them. And 700 people make it past a certain point. That is hardcore, right?
So we begin in the midst of this exam, following the sort of main character, Tada, who is taking the exam, and he's very nervous, and he passes this preliminary part.
Well, yeah, he's basically in a sound... It's pretty cool how they execute this early part of how they get from the 10 to the 11. That's, like, so clever and amazing, I think.
It's worth noting that... We'll get to this, but there's something that all of us, everyone in the crew who watched it, did independently.
Yep.
And when we all realized we did it, but... he passes. So his booth opens up. He walks out, and he just gets instructions from a computer, and he has to go.
Everything is quiet. Everyone else is still in their soundproof booths, at least as far as you can see. So he's all alone, effectively, even though there's all these people around taking the test.
And he goes through very intense security. Like, there is really no way for him to get through these doors, get to these places without having passed this exam.
Yeah, he passes the exam, and as soon as he passes the exam, the computer in the soundproof booth gives him this card. And he has to use that card to get through to the different doors to get out of there. And if he doesn't have the card, he's sort of stuck. So
he goes through all this, and the computer instructs him to do this, do that. He's going on to the next test. He puts on a spacesuit.
He puts on a spacesuit, so you can't see his face anymore. Well, they show his face, but, because he's in a spacesuit, it has a shield to protect you from the sun just burning your face off.
From the terrible secret of space.
Right. Other people in the show can't see his face and he can't see their face because the other people who also passed the test, these remaining 700 people, they're all hidden in spacesuits now.
So he comes to a room finally, and in that room are 9 other people wearing identical spacesuits. And
first they're in the room with the teachers telling them what's going to happen. And then they sort of call their numbers, and then they go into another room.
Yeah, so it's very methodical. Everything comes together. But you get to a scene where there are 10 people, and this is the point. It shows the people kind of standing around while they're getting their instructions, and every one of us went, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's 10. I see 10. They didn't trick me. They're on 11.
There are 10 spacesuits, and there's one teacher, and the teacher in the front, collects all their cards. So it's 10 cards, 10 people in 10 spacesuits. And then he says, all right, all of you are going to go to this space, this ship that's floating in space.
And await further instructions. So all of these these are among the 700 best people in the galaxy. They're not idiots, right? So they're all going to just work together immediately and not be stupid. They don't need someone to coddle them or hold their hand or anything, right? So they're like, okay, guys, let's all go. And so they go. They get to the spaceship. Now, they all go individually through space. They basically jump across space
They
to
do
the
a
ship.
little skywalk because they're real. They basically fly them close to the spaceship, and then they all do a skywalk. So they've never gotten out of their spacesuits. They've never seen each other's faces. They don't know what each other look like. They know there's 10 of them at the present time, but, that's all they know.
So they get to the spaceship. They don't know what to do. They figure out a way in. They get inside. The power's out. They fiddle with it. They get the power going. And then they start to orient themselves. And then suddenly they realize that there are now 11 of them.
All in spacesuits.
So I don't know if I even want to talk anymore about what happens, but
no, definitely not.
They expect there to be 10. There are 11. What do they do? And as soon as they're... I'll say a little bit more just to kind of set the stage for what this is about.
Yep.
As soon as they realize, they start to figure out there's 11, they're starting to, not really panic, but they're all dealing with it in their own ways, and they're trying to figure out what to do. There's an explosion, and basically what they learn, what they are instructed, is that the 10 of them have been put on this ship. They have to survive a number of days on their own with no help from the outside, nothing whatsoever.
No communication to the outside.
All they have is an emergency button that any one of them can press at any time. And if anyone presses that button, someone will come immediately and rescue them all. They will fail the exam.
Yep.
So they have come all this way. Every one of these people, their whole lives are riding on this. They are the best of the best.
This exam, not only is this exam super hard, right? And for the super elite of the universe, they only give the exam every 3 years. If you fail, you're going to have to wait 3 years to try again.
So if anyone pushes that button, or if any of the 10 dies, then they fail, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately explosions start going off in the ship, and the movie kind of takes it from there. So
you have this epic struggle for survival, right? But, because they're in space and dangerous things happen in space, they're trying to survive for the number of days. They're also constantly worrying about who is the traitor. Someone here has a nefarious purpose other than passing the test, but what the fuck? We can't do anything about it because we can't communicate with the outside world. We can't possibly figure out for sure who the traitor is.
And when they all, they take off their spacesuits, and you're now presented with 11 characters. And one by one, they all introduce themselves. and every one of them seems perfectly plausible.
Yeah, they're all.
And just as an example, a small example of what it is that really like made this movie great, I guess the biggest factor for me was that one of the characters has a little bit of psychic power, which in the universe is not that uncommon. He can tell if people are lying. So they all agree, all right, we'll try it. What are the odds that you're the traitor or whatever's going on? Everyone tell your story to this guy, and he'll say who's lying. And they go through the whole thing, and it starts to trip up on one of the guys, but he totally lies on purpose at first to see if the guy was lying himself, and then he tells the truth. Like, everyone is super confident. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing. Everyone's got their shit together.
I mean, how many shows like where all this drama happens because people are stupid, right? And
like every zombie movie where oh, we got to save the dog, and then everyone dies.
Exactly.
In this movie, no one's saving the dog.
Yeah, these are the elite of the elite. So everyone is smart, everyone is cool, everyone is awesome, even though they have disagreements and they fight over things, and there is drama just because, not because anyone's stupid, but because they're in an incredibly difficult and stressful situation in space, but their common purpose of passing the exam and not dying, they manage to work together, and it goes places.
But the other thing that really drives this movie is that button. The button is almost like another character that's always there, ready to strike. There are all these scenes where a character will walk by the button and just stop and look at it, or someone goes over to hit it and then goes,
yeah, because they get into all these tough situations, right? They get tougher and tougher and tougher, and it's just like, man, if I push that button, we'll just be fine. I'll live, and everything will be cool, and I won't have to deal with this bullshit anymore. But I'll fail, and so will everyone else on this ship. And
the movie just takes it from there, and this movie...
It's like how far will you go?
This movie is just so... I mean, all the characters are really strong characters. They all have interesting backstories.
Yeah, some of them... I think that is the one thing, is that there are 11 characters, but admittedly, some of the characters don't do very much. Like the midget guy, he doesn't really come into it that much, There's the guy with the fro, he does nothing. The guy with the red fro... He basically doesn't even...
he does one thing.
What does he do?
He does something. I don't want to spoil anything. He does one thing.
The guy with the red fro doesn't do anything. The guy with the big nose does one thing.
The guy with the big nose also has red hair that's almost in a fro.
No, I'm talking about the fro guy.
Oh, the fro guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't do much.
He doesn't do anything, right? And I think maybe in the manga, those characters might have, developed more. I've never read the manga, so I don't know. So I think that sort of they were in the movie because they were in the manga. But in the movie, at least, that's the only thing that I sort of rubbed me a little bit that was not good, was the fact that they had sort of extra characters in there that didn't develop or sort of mean anything. And some characters, obviously the guy that they show you at the beginning, Tada, gets a lot more attention. He's the main character compared to some of the other characters.
Well, plus, look,
But that's just the necessities of a movie.
But you as the audience, I mean, think about it. You come into this from a meta perspective because you're going to spend this movie trying to figure out what's going on. And you, as an audience member, know that Tada passed the exam. Like, he went with everyone else. He did everything right. But the movie still instills you with doubt, even though you saw him take the exam.
Yep.
But you still start to doubt him.
Yep.
And you doubt everyone, and you have no idea. And it could plausibly be any of them, because none of them is plausibly the 11th one.
And you start to think of all these wild possibilities, like maybe the school is evil and they purposefully put 11 students and sneak one in, like maybe one student got a secret instruction to go on the ship, or something like that.
There's actually a traitor, or maybe there's something weird with this ship, or maybe they
do hint at a lot of weird stuff with the ship.
I was going into this for about halfway through the movie. I started really thinking that they were all ghosts. I was starting to think, are they all ghosts? And I really, it started to make sense. I'm not going to, obviously, we're saying all
maybe it was an honest mistake, like someone who was floating through space to a different exam, because, there were, let's see, 10 people, 700 students, I guess 70 exams, right? Maybe someone just floated in space to the wrong one. It's possible, right? And then they wouldn't know if they went to the wrong one, would they?
The drama.
Because they didn't see any of the people they were with. So it's maybe some other one is like, oh shit, we have 9. Oh fuck.
But the drama really comes out because at any time they could snap their fingers and this problem would be resolved immediately.
but they would fail.
But the price would be so high that they have to deal with this on their own. And the movie just keeps upping the ante.
Yeah. I mean, before I watched it, when all I knew about it was the basic premise of there are 11 people when there's supposed to be 10 in space. That's all I knew. I was like, man, that would make for a pretty good RPG scenario kind of thing. You know, like a little burning wheel something. And having seen it, I was right, but I was like way more right than I knew I was right.
Yes, I feel like this movie almost deserves a final thoughts show.
Maybe.
I have a lot to say about it, but I can't spoil crap. All I want to say, I can't do the oh man, this scene, oh man, that scene, because the existence of certain scenes is in and of itself a spoiler.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There was a point where we were confused about something, and then it was revealed, but then it was revealed the opposite way a little bit later, and then it was revealed. But the scene that stands out the most, and when you all watch this, you'll know, destiny, all is destiny. That scene. I don't know, this movie is just amazing, and it has super high production values. The animation is really, really good. The character designs are really strong. It's based on this fantastic old manga. Watch it.
I just hope they bring out the manga in English.
I would definitely read it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really think we got to, one, we got to do a final thoughts on this, and two, we are definitely making this into a burning wheel scenario. So for all of you who are anime fans, unless you come to a gaming con or maybe Kineticon, you probably won't see us run this, but we're totally turning this into a burning wheel. So all I want to say is if you watch the movie and you go to a con where we are running a burning wheel event that sounds like They Were 11, it is They Were 11. Don't spoil it for anyone else. Don't join the game.
That's another thing, though, right? It's like I want to make an RPG scenario, right? But I feel as if I could give the RPG scenario a different twist. You know, I'd still be a twist, but a different twist than the movie, right? But I feel like the twist from the movie is just so perfect and so great that I wouldn't want to do a different twist. I would want to just steal that one, you know, steal from the Forgotten Masters and whatnot. But
when we say twist,
what's happening
there
is
are like 4 twists.
I know, but then what's happening is I'm spoiling the movie for anyone who does the RPG and spoiling the RPG for anyone who's seen the movie. And I feel like, you know, why should it have to be that way? So it's a little, we got to work on that.
I don't have any reservations whatsoever because the overlap is not super great, and I guess there will probably be a lot of people who will have seen They Were 11 who would want to play in the game, but I don't think there would be that many people who would play in the game and then independently later end up seeing the movie. And even if they did, as long as we skin it right, I could see people playing our game and then later seeing the movie and not immediately realizing they're identical.
Maybe if we use a different number besides 11 in the game. But
11 is so perfect.
I know, it is a really good number.
Like, it's absolutely perfect. I don't like any other
I was thinking
number.
maybe 9 would work.
They were 9?
Yeah.
They were a baseball team?
Well, you know, there's supposed to be 8 and then a 9th shows up, you know.
9 plus 1?
No, there were supposed to be 8, so 9 is the plus 1.
Uh-huh. So what do we call this scenario?
They were 9. You are 9.
Seriously, you can explode. You can pick this movie up for nothing. It was put up by CPM.
I mean, the thing is, if you don't go to like an anime convention where CPM sets up their ultra discount, get rid of everything booth, you can probably find it on the internet. It's no problem. But, you know, I don't know. Go check like Right Stuff on Amazon. It's got to be there somewhere. It's so cheap.
Yes, I enjoyed this movie greatly.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what else I can say. We'll stop now because I really don't want to.
It's a must-watch.
It is. Especially because there aren't that many good anime feature films out there. Like, there's enough to where... There are few enough to where I would expect every self-identifying anime fan to have seen every major released in America animated feature-length film. So I expect all of you to have seen They Were 11.
There you go.
And we're going to do a final thoughts at some point, so it's worth your while. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.